Shalom friends, welcome to my channel where I often talk about religion and relationships. Today, I want to explain 7 reasons why I support Israel more than any other nation in the Middle East and the world. If you are curious about biblical reasons to support Israel in its fight for survival against direct and indirect threats from Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, Iran, Gaza, here are some of the top lessons from the Holy Scriptures. Lesson number 1. Israel people occupy land granted to them by God. In Genesis 12, verse 7, we see God promising to give the land of Canaan to Abraham's offspring. In Genesis chapter 15, verse 16, God says the reason he gave that territory to Abraham's children was because the original inhabitants were engaging in sinful practices that warranted divine judgment. Psalms 24, verse 1 says God owns the universe and everything in it, including different races and tribes who live there. That means he has every right to give any piece of land to anyone he wishes. Several other verses show the Israeli people are living in a land given to them by God, which therefore means Hamas and other groups and states in that region should desist from waging attacks against them. The Palestinians, including Hamas, should be content to live in Gaza and the West Bank and leave Israel to mind its own business. That is how God, the sovereign King of the universe, wants it to be. Lesson number 2. The nation of Israel is the chosen people of God. Exodus 19, verse 6 shows God wanted to make Israelites a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, different from other communities of the world whose culture and religion he did not recognize or endorse. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6 and chapter 14, verse 2 stresses the unique and chosen status of the Israeli people in the world. They highlight their role as a holy people and God's treasured possession, incomparable to the English, Spanish, French, Germans, Italians, Russians, Chinese, Brazilians, Africans, Iranians, Syrians, Jordanians, Egyptians, and Palestinians. Logic demands that we respect and honor our people whom God of the universe has chosen for his purposes. Palestinians should be content with their 2 territories in Gaza and the West Bank and leave Israel to the Israeli people. Lesson number 3. Jerusalem is God's chosen city and dwelling place. Psalms 132, verse 13 to 14 beautifully depicts Jerusalem as God's chosen dwelling place. For thousands of years, the city was a sacred and favored location where God manifested his presence. 2 Chronicles chapter 7, for instance, shows fire from heaven consuming a burnt offering offered to God by the people during the time of Solomon. And 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 10 to 11 talks of a crowd representing the glory of God filling that house of the Lord. Psalms 122, verse 6 calls believers to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. No verse in the Bible, in the entire Bible, tells us to pray for any ancient city, for any ancient or modern city, including London, Paris, Rome, Madrid, Moscow, Tokyo, Toronto, Sydney, New York, Damascus, Tehran, Cairo, or Gaza, except Jerusalem. God's love and care for Jerusalem is quite apparent to any serious student of the Bible. No miracle of divine magnitude and prophecy ever happened in any Middle Eastern city like the ones Jerusalem has experienced since the time of Abraham. Lesson number 4. The Messiah's connection to the land of Israel is quite clear. The Son of God, the Messiah, had physical, cultural, and spiritual ties to Israel. His birth, childhood, and ministry were in that land and not in any other country on earth. Micah 5, chapter 5, verse 2, for instance, prophesied the birthplace of the Messiah would be in the Israelite town of Bethlehem. The city is a short distance from Jerusalem and is the exact place where he was born. Zechariah 9, verse 9 prophesied about the Messiah entering Jerusalem on a donkey, a prophecy he fulfilled towards the head of his life and ministry. This symbolic act reflected his awareness of his Father's love and the divine plan for Jerusalem. In Romans chapter 9, verse 5, Paul notes Messiah's human lineage goes back to the Jewish patriarchs, the most prominent of whom lived in Israel and not to any other part of the Middle East or continent of the earth. Those verses offer enough proof of why followers of Messiah should always start with Israel, which, unlike other communities in the Middle East and the world, continues to embrace his father's teachings like observing the Sabbath and abstaining from all forms of idolatry and unclean meats. Lesson 5. Apostles say God has never rejected the Israeli people. In Romans chapter 11, verse 1 to 2, Paul emphasizes that God has not rejected his people Israel. To him, God's covenant with Israel remains intact despite some challenges or perceived setbacks. In Romans chapter 11, verse 25 to 29, Paul notes a temporary hardening of Israelis' hearts until the predetermined number of Gentiles accept the gospel of Messiah, and then all Israel will be saved. In Acts chapter 3, verse 25, Peter refers to an Israelite crowd as heirs of the prophets and God's covenant with their forefathers. This recognition highlights their privileged position as direct recipients of biblical promises to Abraham. The New Testament shows the Israelite people will eventually accept the Messiah and enter the kingdom of God. No such thing is, however, said concerning the Arabs, Americans, Europeans, Africans, Asians, or the Latinos of Central and South America, to name a few. Lesson number 6. Prophecies of Israel's restoration in Palestine. The vision of dry bones coming back to life in Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 1 to 14, symbolized the restoration of Israel from spiritual and national desolations during their years in exile. God promised a revitalization of their national and spiritual lives. Isaiah chapter 43, verse 5 to 6, and Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 17 further affirm God's plan for the physical and spiritual restoration of the people in their homeland after thousands of years of wandering in foreign lands. The physical phase of that prophecy occurred in 1948 when the Israeli people established their state in Palestine. Individuals born in the last century had and saw biblical prophecy fulfilled by the return of the Israeli people to Palestine, the setting of their flag, and their miraculous survival amid hostilities and attacks from some Arab states and terrorist groups. The existence of the Israeli people in the Middle East is a reality the Palestinian people and Arab states should learn to accept and live with. Modern Israel is fulfilling a prophecy uttered thousands of years ago. Lesson 7. Israel faithfully worship and serve the true God. Israel is the only nation whose people hold on to a monotheistic form of religion that incorporates worshipping the true God and obeying his laws and ordinances as recorded in the Holy Scriptures. The Israeli people, for instance, believe in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 to 5, which affirms the oneness of God, and Psalms 119, verse 160, which declares the entirety of his word as truth. Because of Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 9, and other verses, the Israeli people avoid the detestable practices of the surrounding nations and world religions. They, for instance, reject non-biblical practices like sun worship, veneration of dead saints, use of religious icons, and the observance of once pagan holidays like Halloween, Christmas, and Easter, embraced by most cultures and religions of the world. I admire the Israelis' faith and fidelity to the Bible, which I also share, respect, and obey. So far, only Israel has the most Bible-oriented beliefs and practices. Conclusion. Whether you are already a supporter of this channel or seeking understanding, may these 7 facts deepen your appreciation for the Holy Land and the Israeli people. If you found this video enlightening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for taking your time to listen to me. God bless you.